The foreign exchange mechanism, I am not too sure of what you mean now. I know that I think on January 26th, the FMDQ, issued a market notice on the, with respect to updating, their methodology, methodology for NAFEM rates. That took effect on January, 29. So from time to time, you expect the FMDQ, to revise, their methodology. I'm not too sure that requires any, legislative backing, because once they revise, FMDQ is licensed by the Securities and Exchange Commission. So once they revise, of course, they are the ones in charge of the NAFEM. Okay, once they revise the rates, come into force.
Okay.
Yeah. So, okay. But I want to also, say something here. You see, I'm yet to read the communique. Of course, it's not. Of course, it's not yet out. Talking about their personal statements, but if you go by the personal statements of members, the 12 members in the last, the one before the last February MPC, personal statements. Okay, before we used to think that all of them voted for 400 basis points for that in that February. It was a unanimous until the personal statements now came out. So when their personal statements came out and I went through that, I realized that some members also voted for rates below 400. Okay, as a matter of fact, one member actually voted for 100 basis points, which was the the position I took at the time. All right, that yes, you need to tighten, but in tightening you have to consider other factors. And if you read the personal statement of that member that voted for 100 basis points, quite detailed, and so on. It was only the CBN governor during that meeting that voted for 425 basis points, increase, because at that time he had suggested the rates be moved from 18.75 to 23, 23%. Okay, so that is to tell you that when I sit here and talk about the need to balance, they need to also have regard to a growth, for example. I am not alone. That there's even a member or some members who also have that, that...
Of course, it is expected that yes. All the members will not have the same view
yes.
on a particular
matter. So I'm delighted to find that, such... exactly. He also made a point, my friend made a point. You see, the fiscal side, is churning out a number of programs. The Renewed Hope Infrastructure Fund is one of them. Agric Fund is another. Consumer credit is also there. Student loan
is there.
Yes, so these are programs,
and also efforts to fight insecurity.
Yes, but none of the programs. Programs that are meant to, stimulate the economy. Okay, meant to improve access to credit. So if the fiscal side is doing that, the monetary side is doing things that will tend to constrain credit. Don't you see some divergence?
Okay.
So I think that the monetary authority, okay, should be seen to be also be working towards, aligning with what the fiscal side, is doing. The policy should be supportive of the fiscal side. Okay, that's why I talked about, synergy. It's not as though of course, there's a representation in the MPC, but I just gave you an example of what I mean by divergence. When the two are churning out different growth targets. Central bank has a growth target that's different from that of the fiscal side.
Must they have the same growth target?
That is what I'm saying. That for us, for the...
Because that's the question.
Yes, it's because it's one economy. It's one economy. It's just like saying that do you know what? Inflation rate today, target that the central bank has, central bank governor says he wants to drive 21.4. It is the one in the budget, 21.4% for 2024. Okay, so that tells you, with respect to inflation, that the two are in agreement. They want to see inflation come down to 24.4% by the end of the year. But for growth targets too, okay, these are macro indicators, macro targets. Growth target too should be the same. So the government can have 3.76. Central bank is having 3.38. Okay.
But the disparity is not too...
No, it is. In terms of GDP, yes, in terms of GDP growth rate. Yes. So all I'm saying is that what the central bank is doing in terms of tightening is okay. Okay, is in line with their mandate, primary mandate of price stability. But that's price stability. Remember, the three prices, whether it's interest rates, inflation, and exchange rate. I also understand that under the policy trilemma, central bank monetary policy trilemma is not practically feasible. Okay. It's not feasible for the central bank to achieve low interest rates, low inflation, and low exchange rates. They call it policy trilemma. Okay, so for inflation rate to come down, according to theory, interest rate must go up. But that's speaking to demand side inflation. And I've just told you now that given the nature of our economy, we have a peculiar case. You see, across the world now, in the US, in Europe, the US central bank held rates, Fed, okay? The European Central Bank is also holding rates at 5.25%. Okay, the same with the US. Their target rates for both of them is 2%. And if you've been following MPC meetings across the world, you will notice that most of them now, Sri Lanka, Switzerland, they're all reducing rates. All right. So, but that's understandable, and that's because inflation rates in these economies, inflation rates are moderating. Unlike our own case where inflation rate is rising. But again, if you disaggregate that inflation component, in our own case, okay, we have majorly food. He mentioned it, food inflation is about 38%, 37.9%. Okay, when headline inflation is 31.7%. So, and what is driving food inflation? Okay, it's not the demand thing. What is driving food inflation is a cost push. In my view, yes, I agree, central bank has data at its disposal, but that data too should speak to an anecdotal evidence, that the factors too that they mentioned, insecurity, food shortages, which they also mentioned in the communique.
Okay, Professor.
So the best way to address this kind of inflation is to boost, food output.